Today we're discussing the impact of disunity on governance. And with me to discuss the issues are Mr. Kwabena Sapon, a member of the MPP communications team, and then Mr. Kweku Kwating, a policy advisor and parliamentary candidate for the Obuasi constituency. It all started a few weeks into the Mills administration in 2009 with foot soldier agitations across the country, seizing NHIS offices, locking out DCEs, and then later on, Nana Kunedu Ajiman Rawlings opting to challenge the sitting president at a presidential primary in 2010. Also, the founder of the NDC, former President Flight Lieutenant Jerry John Rawlings, has criticized government at different public fora throughout the 3-year administration of the Mills administration. Today, we would like to look at the impact of the lack of serenity in governance on the governance of this country as a whole. And with us to discuss the issues this evening are Mr. Kweku Kwating, a policy analyst for the MPP and also the parliamentary candidate for the Obuasi constituency. Also, Mr. Kwabena Sapon, a member of the MPP communications team. Today we're looking at the impact of disunity on governance. And like I stated before, the foot soldier agitations, the agitations from the founder of the NDC, also the contest of the president, an unprecedented contest of the president in 2010, where a sitting president in his first term saw a contest from his own party, which he won. Subsequently, yesterday, President Rawlings, in celebrating the 31st December, a guest of honor, the 31st December Women's Movement event at the Golden Tulip, said a lot of things about the NDC government. We ask this evening, what impact do these things have on the governance of Ghana as a nation? I'll go first of all to Kweku. Kweku, welcome to Minority Caucus.
Thank you, Perry.
Your preliminary comments on the topic, the impact of disunity on governance in Ghana.
Well, thank you, Perry. I think the answer to that question is pretty obvious. We elect leaders into office to look through the problems we have, to think together and to come up with strategies to deal with those problems. Mm-hmm. And if you look at Ghana today, everybody is talking about unemployment. We're complaining about waste. And we all talk about the judgment debt matters, the way you may. We want a government that would sit down and think up strategies to deal with these challenges as a nation. And if all we're going to hear day in, day out is what? Logo. Adults fighting over logo, umbrella, and all that. The effect is that precious time that should have gone into devising strategies to deal with the challenges facing us as a people, unemployment, poverty. Today you are seeing the National Health Insurance Program, a darling social program of the people, go so deteriorated. Now you almost don't have any such insurance policy, especially for those in the Ashanti region. Now,
and even here in the Greater Accra.
Yeah, and in many other places, even where we have not had this capitation thing, you still have situations where people go on national health insurance to the hospital and they are buying everything. Now, I think the job of leadership should have been to sit down together, pool their resources, the experience of people. They happen to have the experience of somebody who has been president before. You have former ministers. You should come together and use your experience to deal with these problems. And if day in, day out, you're going to be fighting over symbols and calling each other names, greedy bastards, and the party is not for you people, and we've had enough of you, then naturally the people suffer. And for people like me, that is a concern.
Yeah. Oh, Governor, really, even in countries where there is serenity in government, especially in developing countries such as ours, where we are faced with enormous challenges of providing development and leadership for our people, even in that scenario, there is still the challenge of how governments survive. How do we, encompass this one, where apart from the developmental problems we have as a nation, the ruling party is in a total disarray. There's a lack of, synergy between the party, the founder, the presidency, and the government. What are your thoughts?
Perry, the problem is very simple. Just I always do, I look at before and now. What was the NDC before 2009? Was it a party in disarray? Was it a party fighting over names? Was it a party fighting among themselves? No, it was not. And NDC was a party that was united and fighting for a single cause, with the leader and with the founder of the party leading a massive campaign effort to win power. Then all of a sudden power comes. They elect a leader and heaven break loose. Things fall apart. It is just pure simple leadership. That's what it is. Complete lack of leadership that has brought this thing up to this stage. This thing has been simmering right from January 2009 up to today. And if you think you have a leader, a person who is a leader, and you see such things in your house, you've been appointed or elected a Bushapeni, head of a united family, and all of a sudden, you see members of the family tearing the family apart, and you do nothing, whom are they going to blame?
You blame the father.
You blame the father.
So it is clearly a problem of leadership.
It's a problem of incompetent leadership that JEA Mills is giving to us. And it has not even limited it to the party alone. This country is as divisive as it was, has never been that divisive as today. Never. We've had, how many times have we had registration? Perry, how many times?
Severally, since 1990.
Several.
Almost
Give me
before
a
every election.
single time that we had registration, that we had this kind of violence that we have now.
Not that I can remember.
Not that you can remember. That is why the police was taken unaware of this, unawares. The police was not prepared for it, because it has never been part of anything. There has never been any time for anybody to say, hey, the police, we have to deploy you to this polling station or to that polling station. Never. So the police was completely unaware. They were taken by surprise. Everybody. Because it has never happened in our history. All right? So you have a government that is so bad, so incompetent, that they want to do everything to stay in power.
Being incompetent because of the distraction that it seeks to get from within.
If the government was competent, this distraction did not start from today. It started 3 years ago. A competent, good leader ought to have solved. You are the leader. Mind you, you are the leader of the party.
So you should have solved the problem.
You should have solved the problem.
Anyway.
He rather complicated it by going on air and saying, whether you like it or not, I am the president of this country. You remember?
Yes, sir.
He was talking to J.J. Rawlings. He wasn't talking to you and I. That's what the guy said. At that time, whether you like it, I'm the president of... Things were so bad. So bad. You remember Vice President John Mahama?
Yeah.
You know, at that time, people started calling Mahama, Mills Mahama government.
Yeah.
Things were so bad that Mahama even wanted to dissociate himself from using his name in describing the government. You remember?
Yes, sir.
Mahama vehemently opposed and said, I don't see why you are saying Mills Mahama government. Everybody says Kufuor's government, Rawlings government, Bush government, Carter government, Obama government. Why are you now saying Mills Mahama government? Because the Mills man was so bad that Mahama himself did not even want to associate himself with it. He wanted to make it Mills administration. Finito.
Well, I'll come back to you. Kweku, any other thoughts?
Yes. First, I think it is also important to draw attention to the fact that what is happening in the NDC represents a certain lack of confidence in the leadership of the NDC government on the part of members of the NDC themselves. Because it is unusual for a certain president to be challenged by no other person than the wife of the founder and one of the leading founders of the NDC. Challenge you to say, we do not think you are getting it right. We think you must step aside so that more competent people can come in the front line. So the disagreements we are seeing in the NDC today represents an expression of dissatisfaction with the NDC administration from the NDC people themselves. And it is not just Rawlings and the wife. There are many people in the NDC, members of parliament.
People on the side of the president say that the verdict at Sunyani, giving Nana Akufo-Addo and Rawlings the 3% that she got, tells you that the dissenting views in the party are not that many.
Well, I can easily imagine. I'm not a fan of the Rawlingses, and to be honest with you, there were many in the NDC who thought that, of course, Mills isn't delivering, and they whisper it all over the place. It is the reason the foot soldiers attack state institutions that we want to take over. They attack toilets, and they say that you're not delivering as jobs, and there's discontent. But there were many of them who felt that it was in the strategic interest of the NDC, even though the leader was not performing, to keep him there and to see if they can use propaganda to let him look good. There were many in the NDC who took this strategic attitude. So it explains in part why they probably got a Sunyani verdict. But it is also the case that Nana Akufo-Addo, who lost the election, has said over and over again that election was stolen for President Mills. And that there were people who were not delegates who were sent there. So the response from the Akufo-Addo side to this suggestion that Sunyani settled the matter is that you stole the election. And if anything at all, it should be a lesson for the NPP that you're dealing with a president who has been accused of stealing his own primaries. That's the second point. The third point is that even for those legitimate members of the Electoral College, many of them were political appointees.
Appointed by the president.
Appointed by the president. Yeah. So, of course, they were not going to judge the president by his performance because they are all party to that performance. They were going to protect their own interests, their daily bread and all that. And there's a sense in which you can understand them. I mean, many of these people were having a hard time. The president appoints you all of a sudden, you're putting up mansions, and you definitely want to maintain that status quo as if you're a selfish person. And it does not surprise me that Sunyani happened. But whichever way you look at it, there has been discontent within this administration by its own members towards the leadership than we have ever had. The last point, Perry, I want to make is that the disagreement reflects something else. You know, when recently, Nana Akufo-Addo, I've already made the point that I am not a fan of the Rawlingses. I have been criticizing them traditionally. I even think it was funny for Nana Akufo-Addo to want to be the president of this country after the husband had been there and they call something shaving. When Selassie was shaved, they called it what? When they shaved the young man who was supposed to be
identification
haircut and all that. I didn't think it was proper for her to come back. So I have to make this point that I'm not a fan of the Rawlinses. However, they have made points that are worth interrogating. Mm-hmm. They're saying, Kunadu did not just get up to say that, look, give me back my logo. She said, you are not being accountable. You are deviating from the principles of probity and accountability.
Yeah, and that brings us to the issue of ideology.
Exactly. Yeah. And well, I don't consider that probity and accountability is necessarily anybody's ideology. I mean, these are values that Ghanaian society has known since the beginning of time. Mm-hmm. And when I listen to Kunedu say, you have to be more egalitarian. That is to say, you need to factor in the circumstances of the deprived more in your governance. Mm-hmm. And they're talking about probity and accountability. Somebody takes away, connives with government officials, 5.2 million Ghana cedis. I always say that is equivalent to about 510 big U-turn buses. Mm-hmm. You take all of them, you give it to one person, you pass back and you go and share the booty. When all that is happening, I think there's a sense in which it becomes legitimate for people within the NDC to say, you are deviating. So if you didn't do it, I would take back my logo. I think the president could have an easy task here. In order to keep their logo, all he has to do is to go on and to for instance, retrieve the Woyome money. That's the first point. I would address to some extent his commitment to respect probity and accountability. They should fix the many problems. They should show commitment. If they did that, and maybe the discontent within their party subsided because members of their own party would be realizing now our government is doing its best towards alleviating the difficult circumstances of ordinary people. Who knows? She may well say, now you can use the logo. So I think it is also an opportunity for the Rawlinses. Mm-hmm. And the people, the founder called greedy bastards, I don't feel comfortable using those words, but it is an opportunity for them to say, we've had enough. Now we want to pay attention to the poor. And who knows, they might be lucky, the internal dissent would go down, and they might go into the next election with a little more.
And this evening we're discussing the impact of disunity on governance. With me discussing the issues are Mr. Kweku Kwating and Mr. Kwabena Sapong of the NPP. Mr. Sapong, yeah. Kweku was on the probity and accountability test, and then the ideology issues, that have waded into this matter.
You see, like Kweku said, probity and accountability is not ideology. Okay, to me, it's a kind of something that everybody within the society subscribe to. You see, we all subscribe. Yeah, it's a moral norm. Probity and accountability. There's no ideology. But if you are talking of ideology, it's talking of these guys, they say they are social democrats. All right? Their general secretary is using a Lexus. There's a guy in Sunyani called, they are one of their organizers or so. He's just using a Lexus.
The national organizer.
The national organizer or whatever. They went in and said they raised funds. And social democrats, you raise funds, and your general secretary used the fund to buy a Lexus, and your national organizer used the money to buy a Lexus, and you call yourself a social democrat? This is what Rawlins is talking about.
So in effect, they are failing the probity and accountability test.
That's precisely what he's talking about. You see, Rawlins is so mad with these people. Rawlins criticized NPP, all right? Mm-hmm. He criticized it so bad, so much that he even called the leader of MPP at that time, J.A. Kufuor, Atai. Atai is the criminal that this country has ever known. J.J. Rawlins gave that name to J.A. Kufuor.
Well, but this time around, he says that we are fighting against two enemies.
So
one of them perceived, and the other the traitor.
That's right. So when he sees he brings you in, he spends his time, energy, money, resources, and bring you in to improve upon what he has so much described and condemned. And you come in and do worse than what he he has condemned, then it gets him irritated. It gets him angry.
There are issues of corruption.
That's what I'm saying.
In government.
That is what I'm saying. That's what makes J.J. Rawlings so angry and so mad. Because he said MPP was corrupt. Did he not say that?
Yes, he did.
He did. And then you come in, and the whole government with J.E.M. Mills as head, sitting in, planned to steal over 90 million Ghana cedis of the people's money. That's why Rawlings is angry. He's not angry over anything. They are kidding themselves and priding themselves that Rawlings is angry because you've not jailed MPP sympathizers, supporters. Hey, you've taken 13 of them to court and you've lost. You've taken 13 NDPP active Apalachikis or whatever you call them to court, and you lost all of them. So don't tell us that you are not prosecuting them. You are. We didn't take 13 NDC people to court. We did not. But you have taken 13 of us to court. And you are so incompetent that you have one of the worst form of lawyers as NDC legal team handling the case that you lost each and every one of them. All right? So Rawlings is not angry because you've not prosecuted MPP sympathizers. He's angry because of the massive corruption. I bet you, if Rawlings, I don't know what is preventing him from doing what I'm going to say. Because I believe Rawlings wants to tell Ghanaians, Ghana, I'm extremely sorry. Please forgive me for giving you J.E.M. Mills. That's what Rawlings wants to say.
But
if you look at his speech, that's what he's trying to say.
But if he says that, and I quote, we cannot fight both at the same time, and therefore one has to go.
That's precisely what he's saying. We are not there. So who has to go? We are not there. So if we are not there, we cannot go.
Between the traitor and the enemy.
That's right. He says one has to go. The one who is there has to go. Who is there? Is MPP there?
No.
Who is there?
So he's affirmed what you're proposing.
No, but he has to come out. I'm saying he probably will come out and say, Ghana, please forgive me.
Well, it's a long campaign. The campaign has just begun. It's just heating up. I believe those issues will come up in the course of the campaign.
But NDC have done so bad that Rawlings is on them. I'm repeating it. Not because you've not prosecuted MPP sympathizers, but because you have systematically put in practice a plan, a scheme to defraud the nation and steal our money. If you look at the records that I have here, the records in this Wyoming file, it shows straight away that Mills and Betty Molly Drisso used the system to steal the money. Mills came and told you and I that I don't know anything about it. And then one time he said, no, I'm not interested in those who got the money, but those who caused the liability. Do you know why he said that?
Why did he say that?
Because Betty Molly Drisso has written to him that Wyoming has a contract with Ghana and we abrogated that contract. It's in this document. When Betty Molly Drisso knows very well that Wyoming has no contract. It's in this document.
Well, so that borders on corruption.
That is why Rawlings is mad. He's mad because of the massive corruption. That's why he's mad. He's so angry. So angry that we are so happy that all of us has moved away from what we have observed within the first 30 years of our administration. We've all moved away from that. We don't need that anymore. We have to use this one. That's why Rawlings is saying the enemy and the traitor, one has to go. The enemy is not there. The two enemies. One of them is a traitor and one is a perceived enemy. The perceived enemy is not on the seat now.
So the one
who is on the seat, Rawlings is saying that the one who is on the seat must go. So he's telling Ghanaians, I gave you Mills and I'm asking you to take him away.
Anyway, I'll come back to you. Kweku, it looks like the issues are bordering a lot more on corruption of the Mills administration, and that has been a disappointment to a lot of people, including the founder of the party.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. And I think the surprise is that normally you would expect a government to traverse the first term. As they get into the subsequent terms, people get complacent, power gets into their head, and then people want to punish you that you're getting swollen-headed. But it would appear that from the outset, there were too many people in this administration that decided that it is now or never. And so we saw many things. You remember within 2 weeks, they said they had spent 1.3 billion old Ghana cedis drinking tea.
1.5.
Well,
That's 1.3.
It was actually 1.3.
Okay.
1.3 billion old Ghana cedis drinking tea. That when they go to have the transition meetings, I don't know, in my community in Obuase, you go to the streets, tea is 1 cedi. In fact, that is where they load you with a lot of milk. Otherwise, you could get it for less. So they drank 1.3 billion. What? It is obvious that they use the money for something else. And it didn't take long. Then the NDC foot soldiers were sent to South Africa. And they said there was no money, and before we knew, Woyome had vomited so much money.
The international philanthropist.
International philanthropist.
Yes.
And then they sent the foot soldiers there. They went there, I understand it was too embarrassing for this country. Before they could even enter the knockout stages, they had to return. And then there was this point about 1.6 billion cedis being used to buy hampers for journalists.
For journalists, yes.
What? And then just around that time, government bungalows were being renovated with 1 billion. And just when people were beginning to recover from Woyome, they said cocaine is missing. One government, first term. So you see clearly that from the outset, there was such hunger for material gains and to make hay whilst the sun was shining.
On the part of people who are
yes, and there were accusations, meaning within themselves, that look, President, you appoint small boys, and overnight they are putting up houses from within the NDC.
Yeah.
Then greedy bastards and all those things came. So what is happening now is that it has gotten to a point where there are many in the NDC who think that things are getting really, really bad, and are saying that there should be change of direction. If President Mills would listen and recover from some of these corrupt ways, I think it would be good for this country. I've heard people say it is a reason Ghanaians are going to vote against them. But sometimes when I consider the fact that many are so dissatisfied with this administration, that there's very little doubt that the next election will be won by the NPP, I also imagine what kind of system are we going to inherit? And it is something we should be thinking about as we digest what is happening in the country today. We see the corruption, and we see how that is translating into hardship, the absence of jobs. Today there is no premix. The next day there is no gas.
There's no petrol.
There's no petrol.
There's no diesel.
And there was a program for one stadium for each region. President Mills came and said, Cape Coast Stadium, I'm starting immediately. It has today not happened. And yet, this government inherited oil money. This government has borrowed more than ever within 3 years. And I ask, so what has happened to all that money? We're not seeing the interventions that would deliver the jobs, and people are using that money to pay judgment debts. I hope we'll have time to go into some of these judgment debts. But I have looked at some of the reports, and I can't believe it. If Ghanaians do not rise up and and send a clear signal to all politicians, the NPP, the NDC, everybody, that we will not allow this kind of corrupt subculture to develop. It is emerging. In the past, we used to complain about kickbacks. I mean, in times past. Now, it looks like, I'm landing on this, politicians are finding a new way of stealing from the people. And I think the people of Ghana must rise against this judgment, debt, corruption. We must compel government to retrieve the Woyome money. The judge is already telling them that it appears to me that you people really do not want to take this money. Amidu complained he was sacked. I think Ghanaians must find a way of telling this and subsequent administrations that you mess up with us, even if you have been around for just one term, we will send you packing. Because, very quickly, because you see this idea, and I heard the vice president mention it the other time, that everybody has got 8 years, so males to deserve 8 years. You are not discussing the alleviation of poverty, you're not discussing relief to people. You are thinking about males also getting 8 years. I think Ghanaians must signal to all politicians that you can come in even 2 terms. If you don't deliver and we have a way of kicking you out, we will kick you out so that all politicians can learn lessons.
Before we go onto the phone lines, actually the phone numbers are 0302-211-701 and 0302-211-704. Before we go onto the phone lines, I'll go back to Kwabena Sapong.
Perry, Kwaku ended on a very important point, which the voters of Ghana, the Ghanaians must know.
Which is?
We must tell our politicians that we brought you in to take care of our money and use it to develop forests. If you steal the money...
We have someone on the phone line. I'll come back to you. Admuda from WA, welcome to Minority Caucus.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Perry. I want to thank you and your panelists for the wonderful work you are doing. You see, you shouldn't be surprised that President Mills is failing, because we all remember the Swedro declaration. We all know what happened. After that declaration, a lot of people left the party. He did not have the ability and competence to gather all these people around. This is the same thing that is happening. And I, for instance, don't know the reason why Ghanaians, we decided to vote for such a person to lead us, because clearly, from day one, he cannot manage his own party, his own house. And we have given the whole country to this man to rule. And that is all these things we are experiencing. He cannot deliver on time. All the promises are broken ones. We are fed up with him. And in fact, I'm disappointed in all the NDC communicators and their so-called economists who come to tell us that the economy did not grow in 2004. It was a collapsing economy we gave to them. And at that time, they could create 1.6 million jobs. And when the economy is now in single-digit inflation, they are creating 100,000 jobs. What an irony. You can see that clearly. These people are misleading the whole Ghanaians and the international community. And they lack the competence.
Thank you very much. Big Dreamer from Techiman.
From Aroa.
From Aroa?
Yes.
Okay, welcome to Minority Caucus.
Yeah, thank you very much. Good evening, Perry.
Good evening.
I'm very happy this evening to see Kwabena Sapong, my mentor, this evening. You see, this president, Professor Doolittle, was charged that they are collecting one cedi from the fuel that we have been buying. What happened? They were blaming MPP instead of fighting for the ordinary Ghanaians. Now let's see, the Woyome money that we are talking of. Every blessed day, these people keep on blaming MPP. So we are asking, are they ready to help the ordinary Ghanaians, or they came in to better their lives? If they came in to better their lot, then it is high time the youth of this nation, we have to get up and vote against them. There is one thing, all the ministers, all the MCs, they are making themselves rich. Then we ask, is this the man who said he is going to fight against corruption, or we should expect somebody else? If that is the case, then the youth of this nation, we have to rise up.
Let's go to Baku from Tamale. Baku,
Hello,
good evening.
This is Baku.
Yeah, you're on air.
This is Baku calling from Yendi. Yeah, there is this saying that if the crocodile eats her own eggs, what will it not do to the flesh of a fish? So if Athanaeus cannot handle his own party, what can he do to the general affairs of the nation? This is to tell us that they have no power. They don't have the zeal. They lack knowledge to handle the affairs of the state. Therefore, come 2012, December 7th, they should put their hands together and say bye-bye to Ghana and their policy and hand over to Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo.
Thank you very much, Baku. Bediako from Boga.
Good evening to you and then to your two guests in the studio.
Good evening.
Especially the finance minister in waiting, the man who will take over from the mediocre finance minister, Dr. Dufo, in 2013.
Bediako, are you offering appointments already? Well, make your point and make it snappy.
We in the Upper East region, as far as Upper East region is concerned, we are not just going to vote against the NDC come December 2012 because of the betrayal that Mr. Rawlings talked about. Everybody knows that President Mills is a betrayer. He's a traitor. But we are not going to vote against the NDC mainly because of that. We are going to vote against them because during the 2008 campaign time, Nana Akufo-Addo came to Upper East Region and promised us that he will make sure that he turned the Upper East Regional Hospital to Bolgatanga Municipal Hospital and give us an entirely new regional hospital. Immediately after this promise, President Mills came to Bolga and promised the people of Upper East Region that he will also build an entirely new regional hospital for us. 2010, 2011, 2012 budget. All of this, they spoke about that. As we speak, not even a block that they've added to that, and they are now reneging from the promise that they give to the people of Upper East Region. Apart from that, they went to the
wrap up for me.
And demolished the market with the promise that they are going to build an entirely new market for the people. Today, the women are suffering. So the women are going to vote against President Mills because of those failed promises.
20 seconds and let me go. Thank you very much. Back into the studio. We have a few minutes to go, so if we can wrap up 2 minutes each.
Well, I'll wrap up by saying that, you see, some people get the notion that J.J. Rawlings got 8 years, J.A. Kufuor got 8 years, and therefore J.E.A. Mills should get 8 years. Please, let us stop this. If we vote J.E.A. Mills for another 4-year term, then we are giving a carte blanche to politicians to come in and steal our money. This means that the next party which will come in after J.E.A. Mills has gone will also steal our money, and they will come and tell us, oh, Rawlings got 8, Mills, Kufuor got 8, Mills got 8, so why don't you give me 8? Which means that we will never change the country. We will never move forward. We will always be moving backwards. So if this government has put this in motion and stolen our money, please let's send a message to the politicians. Let's send a message to them. If you cannot maintain harmony and peace in your own home, we are not going to give you another term. If you cannot maintain peace in the country, we are not going to give you another term. If you are going to steal our money, forget about boreholes. Which government has not built schools in Ghana? Which government has not built boreholes in Ghana? The schools under trees. Which government has not removed schools under trees? Capitation grant was set up. The national school feeding was set up. National health insurance was set up. So what have you done that no government has done before? Rural electrification that started. Every government comes in and continues the rural electrification until the whole country is fully electrified. So whether we will go or not, these things that I have said will be done.
Yeah.
Schools will be built. All right, if Kwaku Kwarteng will bring you into government next year and make you president, you will build schools. You will extend the rural electrification. You will do capitation grant. You may even find a necessary to increase.
Let's get closing comments.
But the most important thing is the stealing, pure crafted theft, and this is what we must tell our politicians. Tell them, if you do this again, no, we are not going to give you 4 years.
The impact of disunity on our governance. What are your final thoughts?
My concluding thought, not just on the disunity, because it's coming partly from corruption and all that, is that MPP, let's learn from how Ghanaians are feeling towards this administration because of the corruption and the mismanagement. Let us observe and take that as a lesson, so that when we assume leadership of this country, we would not repeat these mistakes. It is not sufficient to just condemn them. We must also look at how bitter and worried Ghanaians have been about the mismanagement and corruption, and also to tell ourselves that this is something we would never do. Once we do that, I'm sure we will serve the people better and God would bless this party.
And then you wanted to make a point.
It's okay. We can go on. We can go on. We will choose another forum for it. It's about the way Joy FM is represented, the Human Development Report 2012. But it's okay. We can use another forum to look at. If you have
time, then let me say something about Dr. Bawumia and the Statistical Service. Please.
Dr.
Bawumia did not insult the Statistical Service. All that he said that we need an independent, let's have an independent Statistical Service. The Electoral Commission is independent, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
The Auditor General Department is independent, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
The Judicial Service is independent, isn't it?
So we need an independent.
So if after 22 years, a very critical department of our national life is under the Ministry of Finance, and the Deputy Governor, former Governor of the Bank of Ghana is saying, please, let us have this unit as an independent unit. Has he said anything wrong?
Well,